Jack Miller stared out the viewport as the transport ship approached Arcturus training station. The massive ring-shaped structure gleamed against the backdrop of stars, blue energy fields pulsing along its outer rim. This would be his home for the next year. If he survived that long, he wasn't supposed to be here. After 2 tours as a Marine on the Mars colonies, Jack had sworn he was done with military life. But when Earth finally joined the Galactic Confederation and needed representatives in their joint military forces, the government came knocking at his door. Special skills, they said. Combat experience in low-gravity environments. What they didn't say was how desperately they needed humans who could handle the physical and psychological stress of working alongside alien species. The real reason Jack said yes wasn't patriotism. It was the stipend, enough credits to cover his mother's medical treatments for the next 5 years. What choice did he have? Final approach to Docking Bay 7, announced the ship's AI. All recruits prepare for arrival processing, Jack gathered, his few belongings. The small bag contained everything the Confederation allowed: basic clothing, a data pad with translated training manuals, and a single personal item, a weathered photo of his family from before his father died. The ship shuddered as docking clamps engaged. Jack took a deep breath and joined the line of recruits moving toward the airlock. He was the only human. "Look at those limbs," said a voice behind him. "So fragile, like twigs waiting to snap." Jack didn't turn around. The speaker was Vraxian. He could tell from the deep, rumbling tone of their speech translator. The Vraxians stood nearly 8 feet tall with scaled skin and muscle density 3 times that of humans. They considered themselves the Confederation's natural warriors. "I heard they break easily," another voice added. "This one higher, faster, a Kandari. Their cat-like reflexes made them prized as scouts and assassins." "My cousin watched a human training exercise. Said one fell and cracked its skull open on a simple obstacle course." Jack kept walking. Reaction would only encourage them. The airlock opened to reveal a cavernous docking bay. Hundreds of recruits from dozens of species filled the space, grouped by their home planets. Jack looked for other humans but saw none. A sinking feeling settled in his stomach. "Recruits, attention." The command came from a Vraxian officer wearing the silver bars of a commander. The room instantly fell silent. "I am Commander Zix Vorn, Chief Training Officer of Arcturus Station. You are here because your worlds believe you can contribute to the Confederation's defenses. Many of you are wrong." Zix Vorn's massive form moved through the crowd. Recruits parted before him like water. 60% of you will fail basic training. Another 20% will be reassigned to non-combat roles. The remaining 20% might possibly be worthy of serving in the Galactic Defense Force. Trotesiar. Commander stopped directly in front of Jack. Yellow eyes with vertical pupils studied him. "Ah, a human. Our newest member species." Zix Vorn's voice carried through the bay. "I've read the reports on your physiology. Disappointing." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Jack kept his gaze forward, face expressionless. No natural armor, limited strength, poor sensory capabilities. Zix Vorn circled him. "Your kind lacks everything that makes a good soldier except perhaps your ability to breed quickly." More laughter. Jack's jaw tightened, but he remained. "Still, let's see if you can prove those reports wrong, human." Zix Vorn returned to the front of the room. "All recruits will now be assigned to their training squads. When you hear your designation, proceed to your squad leader." For the next 30 minutes, names were called and groups formed. Jack waited, increasingly isolated as the crowd thinned. Finally, only a handful of recruits remained. "Gamma Squad," called Zix Vorn, not bothering to hide his amusement. "Our collection of special cases." 6 names were called. Jack's was last. His new squad mates looked like the definition of misfits. A Kandari female with a scar running down her face. A nervous-looking Telfin whose natural armor plates seemed underdeveloped. A massive Vraxian with a cybernetic eye. 2 reptilian saurians who looked identical, twins perhaps. And a blue-skinned Delvian whose tentacle-like appendages twitched constantly. "I am Squad Leader Drav," said the Vraxian with the cybernetic eye. He looked at Jack with open disgust. Follow me to quarters. Try to keep up, human. The walk to their assigned barracks was a blur of metal corridors and strange smells. Jack's legs already ached from the station's gravity settings, calibrated for the Confederation standard, about 1.2 times Earth normal. Their quarters were little more than a large room with sleeping pods along the walls. Each pod was tailored to its occupant's biology. Jack's looked disappointingly like a coffin. Listen up, Drav growled once they were inside. Gamma Squad is where they put the rejects, the ones nobody wants. Command expects us to fail, and I refuse to give them that satisfaction. He pointed at each squad member in turn, assigning roles based on their species' natural abilities. When he reached Jack, he paused. The human... Drav's translator couldn't quite capture his sneer. Rear guard, I suppose. Try not to die too quickly. I have a name, Jack said quietly. It's Jack Miller. The room went silent. Challenging a squad leader on day one was either brave or stupid. Drav moved faster than Jack expected. The Vraxian's massive hand closed around his throat, lifting him off the ground. On your world, perhaps names matter, Drav said. Here, only capability matters. You have none. Until you prove otherwise, you are just human, the weakest link in my squad. As Jack struggled for air, he heard betting start among his squad mates. 10. Credit says he doesn't last a week, said one of the Saurians. 3 days, countered the Delvian. Only the Kandari female remained silent, watching with what might have been curiosity. Drav released him and Jack fell to his knees, gasping. Training begins at Station Dawn. Anyone late runs laps in double. Gravity. As the others claimed their pods, the Kandari approached Jack. I'm Alara, she said, her voice musical despite the translator. Ignore Drav, he treats everyone like that at first. Jack rubbed his bruised throat. Thanks for the warning. Most recruits don't know this, but the station keeps records of every training cycle. Squad Gamma has never produced a single graduate. Why tell me this? Alara's cat-like eyes studied him. Because I want to be the first, and I'm trying to decide if you're going to help or hinder that goal. She walked away before he could answer. Jack climbed into his too small sleeping pod and stared at the ceiling. As the lights dimmed for station night, he made a silent promise to himself. He would show them. All of them. He would show them exactly what a human could do. The first 2 weeks of training were a blur of pain and exhaustion for Jack. Every morning began before station dawn with physical conditioning designed for species much stronger than humans. Every afternoon focused on weapons training with devices, built for hands larger or smaller than his. Every evening ended with tactical simulations where his squad barely acknowledged his existence. Jack endured it all silently. He watched. He learned. He adapted. He noticed things his alien squad mates missed. The way Drav favored his right side, suggesting weakness on the left. How the Saurian twins, Kex and Vex, struggled with low-light environments. The strange clicking sound the Delvian named Zrill made when nervous. Most importantly, he noticed how they all relied too heavily on their natural advantages. On the 15th day, Commander Zixvorn gathered all squads in the main hangar bay. Recruits, your first field exercise begins tomorrow, the commander announced. Each squad will deploy to Taraxis Fru for a retrieval mission. The environment is hostile. The wildlife is dangerous. Some of you will not return. Jack felt the other. Recruits shift uneasily around him. Your objective is simple. Locate the beacon hidden somewhere in the jungle sector, retrieve the data core it contains, and return to your extraction point within 48 hours. The first squad to complete the mission earns a week of premium rations. Zixvorn's yellow eyes swept over the assembled recruits. Those who fail to return with their full squad will be immediately dismissed from the program. Later, in their quarters, Drav outlined their strategy. We move in standard formation. Kex and Vex on point. I'll take center with Zrill. Norash provides heavy support. He pointed to the Telfin whose armor plates gleamed dully under the lights. Alara handles navigation and comms. Jack waited for his assignment. The human stays at the rear, Drav concluded. Try not to fall too far behind. Statistically speaking, said Jack, speaking up for the first time in days, rear guard has the highest casualty rate in unfamiliar territory. Predators often attack from behind. The room went silent. Drav's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Jack. You volunteering for a different position? The Vraxian asked with dangerous softness. Just stating facts, Jack replied. Facts keep you alive. Then here's a fact for you, human. You're weak, slow, fragile. The rear is where you belong because you're the most expendable. Jack nodded slowly. I understand my place, squad leader. That night, while the others slept, Jack reviewed everything about Taraxis 4 on his datapad. The jungle planet had gravity slightly lower than Earth normal, an advantage for him. The atmosphere was oxygen-rich but contained trace elements toxic to several species, including Vraxians. The native flora included plants with natural electrical defense systems. The fauna featured 6-limbed predators with chameleonic skin. Knowledge was power. If his squadmates wouldn't respect his strength, he would find other advantages. The drop. Ship shook violently as it entered Taraxis 4's atmosphere. Jack checked his equipment one last time. Standard issue pulse rifle, too big for his frame, survival kit, emergency beacon, and one addition he had quietly requisitioned, an old-style combat knife. The Confederation considered bladed weapons. Primitive, but Jack knew better than to trust solely in technology. Final approach, called the pilot. Prepare for deployment. The squad assembled near the rear hatch. Their armor was a patchwork of mismatched pieces. Gamma Squad received the leftovers after other teams had first pick. Jack's barely fit, the chest plate leaving gaps at his sides. Remember, Drav growled. We move together. We finish together. Anyone who jeopardizes this mission answers to me. The dropship landed with a heavy thud. The hatch opened to reveal a wall of dense, purple-tinged vegetation. Strange calls echoed from the canopy above. The air felt thick, almost syrupy in Jack's lungs. Move out, ordered Drav. They advanced into the jungle in formation. The twin saurians slithered through the undergrowth with natural grace. Norash's heavy footsteps crushed smaller plants. Alara moved like a shadow, checking her nav unit regularly. Jack kept pace at the rear, watching their backs. 2 hours into their trek, Jack noticed something odd. The jungle sounds had gone quiet around them. He tapped his comm unit. Possible threat nearby, he whispered. The local wildlife stopped making noise. Your primitive instincts making you jumpy, human? Kex, or maybe Vex, hissed back. Before Jack could respond, something massive dropped from the canopy. It landed directly on the twins. A blur of limbs and teeth. Their screams cut through the jungle silence. Contact! Drav shouted, spinning and opening fire with his heavy pulse cannon. The creature, nearly invisible against the foliage until it moved, leapt away from the twins. One of the saurians lay motionless. The other writhed in pain, greenish blood pooling beneath him. 3 more shapes dropped from above. The squad scattered in panic. Jack dove behind a thick trunk as claws raked the air where he had been standing. The creature pursuing him was the size of a tiger, but with 6 powerful limbs and skin that shifted colors to match its surroundings. Only its movement gave it away. Pulsefire erupted from multiple directions as his squadmates fought for their lives. Jack heard Zril's clicking grow frantic, then stop abruptly. Noresh bellowed in pain. Fall back to the ship, Drav ordered over. The comm dart. Jack checked his position. The dropship was half a kilometer behind them, but the creatures blocked his path back. He needed another option. A flash of movement caught his eye. Ilara sprinting through the undergrowth with 2 creatures. In pursuit? She was fast, but they were gaining. Jack made a split-second decision. He stepped out from cover, raised his oversized rifle, and fired 3 precise shots. The first missed. The second caught one creature in what looked like a shoulder joint. The third hit the other directly in the head. It dropped mid-leap. Alara changed direction, racing toward him. This way, Jack called, spotting a formation of rocks rising above the jungle floor. They scrambled up the rocky slope. The wounded creature tried to follow but couldn't climb with its injured limb. It paced at the base, occasionally testing the rocks with its remaining good limbs. "Where are the others?" Jack asked, scanning the jungle below. Alara shook her head. "Scattered. Comm signals are being blocked by something in the atmosphere." She looked at him with new respect. "Good. Shooting back there. Lucky shots," Jack said modestly. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, but we're cut off from the squad and the dropship." Jack checked his nav unit. The mission beacon was still 15 kilometers northeast. "We have two choices," he said. "Try to find the others and risk more encounters with those creatures, or continue the mission. With just the two of us?" Alara's ears flattened against her head. "That's suicide." "Maybe." Jack surveyed the jungle. "Or maybe it's exactly what those creatures expect us to do. Run back the way we came." Alara studied him curiously. "You're not afraid?" Jack smiled grimly. "I'm terrified. But humans learned long ago that running from predators rarely works. Sometimes you have to become the predator yourself." He checked the charge on his rifle and adjusted his ill-fitting armor. "So what do you say, Alara? Ready to show Gamma Squad what we're made of?" For the first time since they'd met, Alara's lips curved into what might have been a smile. "Lead the way, human." Jack grinned. "The name's Jack, and I think it's time we change the rules of this game." Jack and Alara moved through the jungle with careful steps. Night had fallen on Taraxis fur, bringing new dangers. Strange plants glowed with soft blue light. Flying creatures with transparent wings darted between trees. The air hummed with unfamiliar sounds. "We should rest soon," Alara whispered. Her night vision was better than Jack's, but even she looked tired after 6 hours of constant movement. Jack nodded. "Let's find higher ground first." They climbed a small hill topped with dense vegetation. Jack used his combat knife to cut branches from the glowing plants, creating a small shelter hidden from view. The blue light was just enough to see by without attracting attention. "Smart," Alara admitted as they settled inside. "I wouldn't have thought of using the plants this way." "Humans have been building shelters since before we had technology," Jack explained. "It's in our blood." Alara studied him with curious eyes. "Your species confuses me. You're physically weaker than most Confederation races, yet Earth's history is filled with warfare and conquest." "We adapted," Jack said simply. "When you can't outfight your enemies, you outthink them." He checked his nav unit. The mission beacon was still 10 kilometers away. Their progress had been slow but steady. "What do you think happened to the others?" Alara asked. Jack frowned. "Best case? They made it back to the dropship. Worst case?" He didn't finish the sentence. "Drav won't abandon the mission," Alara said. "His pride won't allow it. Then maybe we'll run into them tomorrow." Jack tried to sound more confident than he felt. They took turns keeping watch through the night. When morning came, they ate quick ration bars and continued their journey. The jungle was less dense here, with patches of clearing between the massive trees. In one such clearing, Jack froze. He raised his hand, signaling Alara to stop. "What is it?" she whispered. Jack pointed silently at the ground. Large tracks crossed their path, not from the 6-limbed predators they'd encountered earlier, but something else. "Something bigger." "Apex predator," Jack murmured. "And it passed through recently." They proceeded with even greater caution. The Yao jungle seemed to press in around them, watching and waiting. Jack couldn't shake the feeling they were being hunted. An hour later, they found the first body. One of the Saurian twins lay sprawled on the forest floor, his scaled body torn open. His weapons and equipment were gone. Kex, Alara identified him. He and Vex were inseparable. If Kex is here, they found Vex 20 meters away in similar condition. Jack knelt beside the bodies, examining the wounds. "These aren't from the creatures that attacked us yesterday. Different bite pattern." "We should keep moving," Alara said, ears flattened against her head. Whatever did this could still be nearby. They continued toward the beacon, now more alert than ever. The jungle had become enemy territory. Every sound, every movement in the undergrowth might signal an attack. Around midday they reached a river cutting through the landscape. The water flowed fast, its surface purple-tinged like much of the planet's vegetation. "The beacon is on the other side," Ilara said, checking her nav unit. Jack studied the rushing water. "Too fast to swim safely. We'll need to find another way across." They followed the riverbank, searching for a narrower crossing point. Jack noticed strange metal debris half buried in the mud, not natural to this world. "Look at this," he called to Ilara. "Someone was here before us." He dug out a piece of metal plating. It bore the insignia of a mining corporation. "There was a Confederation outpost on this planet years ago," Ilara explained. "They abandoned it when the native wildlife proved too dangerous." Jack had an idea. If there was an outpost, there might be infrastructure, bridges, buildings. They continued along the river with renewed purpose. Half a kilometer downstream, they found what they were looking for: the remains of a metal bridge spanning the water. Most of it had collapsed, but the support structures still stood. "We can cross here," Jack said, examining the rusted beams. "It doesn't look safe," Ilara replied doubtfully. Jack tested one of the metal beams. It held his weight. "I'll go first. Follow exactly where I step." He moved carefully across the remains of the bridge, testing each foothold before putting his full weight on it. Ilara followed close behind. They were halfway across when Jack heard a sound that made his blood run cold, a deep, rumbling growl from the jungle behind them. "Move faster," he urged Ilara. "Something's coming." They hurried across the remaining beams. Jack's foot slipped once, nearly sending him into the rushing water below. Ilara grabbed his arm, her Kandari strength easily pulling him back to safety. They reached the other side just as something massive burst from the tree line. It was twice the size of the predators they'd faced earlier, a hulking beast with armored skin and a mouthful of serrated teeth. It roared at them from across the river. "Run!" Jack shouted. They sprinted into the jungle as the creature charged toward the bridge. The rusted metal groaned under its weight. Jack glanced back to see the bridge collapse, sending the beast crashing into the river below. It thrashed and roared, fighting against the current. "It won't stop it for long," Jack panted as they ran. "That thing will find a way across." They pushed deeper into the jungle. According to the nav unit, they were close to the beacon now, less than a kilometer away. The terrain changed, becoming rockier. Ancient stone structures began to appear among the trees, ruins of some long-gone civilization. And there, in a small clearing surrounded by crumbling pillars, stood their objective, a Confederation beacon, its light pulsing steadily. "We made it," Ilara said with relief. Jack approached the beacon cautiously. This had been too easy. The clearing was exposed, visible from all sides. Perfect for an ambush. "Wait," he said, holding up his hand. "Something's not right." He scanned the surrounding ruins. Nothing moved, but his instincts screamed danger. "What is it?" Ilara asked. "If I were hunting prey," Jack explained quietly, "this is exactly where I'd wait for them to come." As if responding to his words, a figure stepped out from behind one of the stone pillars. Jack raised his rifle, then lowered it in surprise. It was Drav. The Vraxian squad leader looked battered but alive. His armor was scratched and dented, and dried blood crusted around his cybernetic eye. "Well," Drav rumbled. "The humans survived. Impressive." "Where are the others?" Jack asked. "Dead. All except us three." Drav's organic eye narrowed. "And now, I find you two here at the objective. Perhaps humans have some use after all." Jack didn't like the way Drav was looking at them. Something felt wrong. "Let's complete the mission and get out of here," Jack said, moving toward the beacon. Drav stepped forward, blocking his path. "There's been a change of plans." "What do you mean?" Ilara asked. "This isn't a training exercise," Drav said, his voice cold. "This is a test. Only one squad member was meant to return with the data core." Jack felt Ilara tense beside him. That's not what Commander Zixvorn told us. The commander tells recruits what they need to hear. Drav's hand moved to his weapon. Now I'll be taking that data core. After all, as squad leader, I deserve the glory of completing the mission. Jack realized with sudden clarity that Drav had never expected any of them to survive. The Vraxian had probably abandoned the others when the predators attacked, using them as distractions while he made his way to the objective. We can all make it back, Jack said carefully. Together. Drav laughed, a harsh sound. Still thinking like a human. This is the Confederation military. Only the strongest survive. Raised his pulse cannon, aiming it at Jack's chest. And you, human, are definitely not the strongest. Jack looked at the distance to the dropship, then at the swarm of creatures closing in behind them. They wouldn't make it at their current pace. He needed to do something unexpected. Drav, I need your armor chest plate, Jack said, already helping. The Vraxian removed the heavy piece of equipment. What are you doing? Drav asked weakly. Buying us time. Jack took the plate and laid it on the ground. Get on. Drav stared at him in confusion. Your armor is made of titanium alloy, Jack explained quickly. It will slide down this slope. Think of it as a sled. Understanding dawned on the Vraxian's face. He lowered himself onto the makeshift sled, wincing as his wound stretched. Jack positioned himself behind Drav and gave a hard push, sending them both sliding down the muddy slope toward the clearing. The pack creatures howled in frustration as their prey suddenly picked up speed. A few tried to follow but slipped and tumbled in the mud. Jack steered as best he could, using his boots to brake when they risked going too fast. They shot out of the jungle and across the clearing, sliding to a stop near the dropship's ramp. Ilara was already inside, waving frantically. Come on, she shouted. Jack helped Drav to his feet and they stumbled up the ramp. Behind them, the pack creatures reached the edge of the clearing, hesitating at the open space. Close the ramp and take off, Jack yelled to the pilot. The ramp began to rise, but not before one of the creatures leapt aboard. It scuttled across the metal floor, heading straight for Jack. He raised the pulse cannon, but it clicked empty, out of charge. The creature pounced. Jack rolled aside, drawing his combat knife. He slashed at the creature as it landed, cutting into one of its many legs. It shrieked and turned to attack again. Drav, despite his injury, lunged forward and grabbed the creature by what passed for its neck. With a single powerful twist, the Vraxian snapped it. The creature went limp. Now we're even, Drav said, collapsing into a seat as the ship lifted off. Jack nodded, trying to catch his breath. Through the viewport, he could see dozens of the pack creatures swarming the clearing below, growing smaller as the ship ascended. Mission accomplished, Ilara said, holding up the data core. All 3 of us made it. 3 of 18, Jack noted grimly. Not a great success rate. The dropship broke atmosphere, the blue-green curve of Taraxis 4 falling away beneath them. Ahead, the gleaming ring shape of Arcturus Station waited. You could have left me, Drav said quietly. After what I did, most would have. Most aren't human, Jack replied. Drav's organic eyes studied him. I was wrong about you, about humans. We get that a lot. When they docked at the station, medical teams were waiting. They rushed Drav to the infirmary while Jack and Ilara were escorted to debriefing. Commander Zixvorn stood in the center of the room, his yellow eyes unreadable. Explain, he ordered. Jack handed over the data core. Mission completed, sir. We retrieved the objective. With only 3 survivors, Zixvorn noted, and 1 critically injured. The extraction could have been better coordinated, Jack admitted, but we fulfilled our orders. The commander circled them slowly. Squad leader Drav claims you saved his life. Twice, even after he attempted to kill you. Jack said nothing. Why? Zixvorn demanded. Because that's what humans do, sir. We don't leave people behind. Even your enemies? Especially our enemies, Jack replied. It's easy to save people you like. The true test of character is saving those you don't. Zixvorn stopped in front of Jack. The squad leaders of other teams abandoned weaker members to complete the mission more efficiently. It is the Confederation way. Survival of the fittest. With respect, sir, that's not always the best way. No? The commander's voice was dangerously soft. Strength isn't just about who can hit hardest, Jack explained. It's about adapting, overcoming, finding solutions where others see only obstacles. And sometimes it's about working together despite differences. Zixavorn was silent for a long moment. Then, to Jack's surprise, he laughed. A harsh, barking sound. "Do you know what was on that data core, recruit?" Jack shook his head. "Nothing," Zixavorn said. "It's blank. The real mission wasn't retrieval. It was a test of character, to see who would abandon their squad mates and who would stand by them." Jack and Alara exchanged shocked looks. "Every cycle, we run this exercise," the commander continued. "And every cycle recruits make the same choice, self over squad. Until now." He stepped closer to Jack, towering over him. "You are small, weak and slow by our standards, yet you survived where others stronger than you failed. You saved your teammate. You even saved the one who betrayed you." Jack met his gaze steadily. "As I said, sir, that's what humans do. Perhaps the Confederation has something to learn from humanity after all." Zixavorn turned to address them both. "You passed the real test. Report to Delta Squad barracks tomorrow. You're being reassigned." Jack blinked in surprise. "Delta Squad? But they're elite special operations," Zixavorn confirmed. "They could use your unique perspective." After the commander dismissed them, Jack and Alara walked slowly through the station corridors. Other recruits stared as they passed, whispering among themselves. Word of their survival had spread quickly. "Delta Squad," Alara said, shaking her head in disbelief. "No recruit has ever been promoted directly to Delta." "We make a good team," Jack said with a tired smile. They stopped at a viewport overlooking the stars. Earth was too distant to see from here, but Jack looked in its direction anyway. "You know what this means?" Alara asked. "The other species will be watching you now. Humans will be judged by your actions." "No pressure," Jack muttered. "I've been thinking about what you said in the jungle," she continued, "about how humans adapted when they couldn't outfight their enemies. It's true. Throughout our history, we've been both predator and prey. We learned to use our minds when our bodies weren't enough." Ilara's cat-like eyes studied him. "The Confederation has never encountered a species quite like yours before. Most evolved by becoming stronger, faster, more armored. But humans, we evolved by becoming more afraid," Jack finished. "Fear kept us alive, made us smarter, more creative, more determined." "Fear is a strength," Ilara mused. "An interesting concept." Jack remembered the pack creatures closing in, the desperate slide down the hill, the snap decisions that kept them alive. Fear teaches you your limits and how to push past them. In the infirmary, Drav watched the human and Kondari from his bed. His wound would heal, but his pride might take longer. He had underestimated the human. They all had. The Vraxian closed his eyes, recalling the moment when Jack had stood over him, weapon in hand. Any Vraxian would have killed a rival in that position. It was their way. But the human had chosen differently. And now Drav found himself afraid, not of Jack's strength but of his mercy. Because in that moment the human had shown a kind of power the Vraxian had never considered before. Perhaps this was why humans had survived on their hostile planet despite their physical limitations. They had learned to transform fear into determination, hatred into purpose, and even enemies into allies. Drav shuddered slightly. If one human could accomplish all this, what might an entire planet of them achieve given the chance? For the first time in his life, the mighty Vraxian understood what it meant to truly fear another species. And somehow that fear carried with it an unexpected emotion: respect. Time seemed to slow as Jack stared down the barrel of Drav's pulse cannon. The Vraxian's finger tightened on the trigger. Jack knew he couldn't outrun the shot, and his own weapon was still slung across his back. But Jack had been watching Drav for weeks. He had noticed things others missed. "Your eye is malfunctioning," Jack said calmly. Drav blinked in confusion, his cybernetic eye whirring as it tried to focus. That split second of distraction was all Jack needed. He dove to the side as Drav fired, The energy pulse hit the ground where Jack had been standing. In one fluid motion, Jack rolled and pulled his combat knife from its sheath. "Cheap trick," Drav growled, tracking Jack with his weapon. Before he could fire again, Ilara leapt at him from behind. Her Kandari reflexes were blindingly fast. She landed on Drav's back, clawing at his face. The Vraxian roared in pain and anger. Reaching back to grab her, Jack didn't waste the opportunity. He sprang forward and plunged his knife into the gap in Drav's armor that he had noticed during their training sessions, a weak spot where the chest plate joined the shoulder guard. Drav howled, dropping his weapon. He threw Ilara off and stumbled, backward, purple blood seeping from his wound. "Impossible," he gasped. "Beaten by a human?" "Not just any human," Jack said, retrieving Drav's fallen pulse cannon. "One who pays attention." Drav collapsed against one of the stone pillars, his breathing ragged. "Kill me, then. It's what a Vraxian would do." Jack shook his head. "That's not how humans operate. At least not this human." He turned to the beacon and placed his hand on the scanner. The device hummed, then opened to reveal a small data core. "We completed the mission," Jack said, pocketing the core. "Now we need to get back." Ilara looked at Drav. "What about him?" "We take him with us. He tried to kill us. And he'll answer for that," Jack replied. "But we're not leaving anyone behind." Ilara seemed ready to argue, but stopped when a distant roar echoed through the jungle. The apex predator had found a way across the river. "We need to move," Jack said urgently. They helped the wounded Drav to his feet. The Vraxian was heavy, and Jack struggled under his weight. Ilara took the other side, her strength compensating for Jack's limitation. "Why?" Drav asked weakly as they began moving. "Why help me?" "Because that's what squad members do," Jack answered. "We look out for each other, even the ones who don't deserve it." They moved as quickly as possible through the ruins and back into the jungle. The extraction point was still 5 kilometers away. With Drav slowing them down and a predator on their trail, Jack knew they needed a new strategy. "We can't outrun it," he said. "We need to outsmart it." Jack scanned their surroundings. The jungle was dense here, with thick vines hanging from the canopy. An idea formed in his mind. "Those electrical plants we saw earlier," he said to Ilara. "Do they grow in this area?" Ilara nodded. "They're more common near water sources." "Good. Help me find some." They altered their course slightly, heading toward a small stream. Sure enough, clusters of the glowing plants grew along its banks. Their stems pulsed with blue electrical energy, a natural defense mechanism. "What are you planning?" Ilara asked as Jack began cutting several plants with his knife. "A trap," Jack explained. "Something I learned from Earth history." He worked, quickly, weaving the plants into a crude net. The electrical current made his hands tingle painfully, but he continued. Years of hunting in the forests back on Earth had taught him basic trap making. This was similar, just with alien materials. "There," he said, finishing his work. "Now we need to set it up." They found a suitable location, a narrow path between 2 massive tree trunks. Jack climbed one of the trees using vines to secure the plant net high above the ground. He rigged it with a trigger mechanism fashioned from flexible branches. "Now, we need bait," Jack said, looking at Drav. The Vraxian's eyes widened. "You plan to use me as bait?" "Not you," Jack clarified. "Your blood." He tore a strip from his uniform and pressed it against Drav's wound, soaking it with purple Vraxian blood. He placed the cloth on the ground beneath the trap. "We wait here," Jack said, pointing to a dense thicket several meters away. "When it comes for the blood, I'll trigger the trap." They didn't have to wait long. The predator's roars grew closer, and soon they could feel the ground shake with its approaching footsteps. Jack, Ilara, and the wounded Drav huddled in their hiding spot, barely breathing. The massive creature burst into view. It was even larger up close, its armor-plated skin gleaming dully in the filtered sunlight. 6 eyes swept the area as it sniffed the air. It spotted the blood-soaked cloth and moved toward it. "Wait," Jack whispered, holding the trigger vine tightly. "Not yet." The predator stepped directly beneath the net. Jack pulled the vine hard. The trap released, dropping the electrified plant net onto the creature. As soon as it made contact, blue energy coursed across the predator's body. It thrashed and roared in pain, unable to free itself from the clinging, shocking vines. "Now run!" Jack shouted. They fled through the jungle as the predator's agonized roars faded behind them. Jack kept them moving at a steady pace, not too fast for the injured Drav, but quick enough to put distance between them and any other threats. The extraction point appeared on their nav units, less than 2 kilometers away. As they drew closer, Jack's comm unit suddenly crackled to life. "Gamma Squad, this is Dropship Tango 7, respond if you copy." Jack pressed his comm. "This is Gamma Squad. 3 survivors requesting extraction. Copy that. Be advised we detect multiple hostiles converging on your position. Suggest you hurry." They picked up their pace. Through gaps in the canopy, Jack could see the dropship, hovering above a small clearing, their extraction point. They were close. A chittering sound from their right made Jack freeze. It wasn't the apex predator. This was something new. Through the trees, he caught glimpses of small, nimble creatures, moving in formation, dozens of them. "Pack hunters," Alara whispered, her ears flat against her head. The creatures were cat-sized with multiple legs and gleaming black eyes. Alone, they might not be a threat. But in these numbers, "We make a run for it," Jack decided. "Alara, you're fastest. Go ahead and signal the ship to be ready for immediate takeoff. I'll help Drav." Alara hesitated. "They'll swarm you." "Not if I can help it." Jack handed her the data core. "Go, complete the mission." Alara nodded and sprinted toward the extraction point, her Kundari speed quickly carrying her ahead. Jack supported, Drav, who seemed confused by Jack's actions. "You should leave me," the Vraxian muttered. "Save yourself." "That's not how I operate," Jack replied. They moved as fast as Drav's injury allowed. Behind them, the pack creatures began their pursuit, moving through the undergrowth with frightening coordination. The clearing was just ahead. Jack could see the dropship touching down, its rear ramp lowering. Alara stood at the edge, waving them forward. The first of the pack creatures burst from the jungle behind them. Jack fired Drav's pulse cannon one-handed, forcing them back momentarily. But there were too many. "We're not going to make it," Drav said. Jack gritted his teeth. "Yes, we are."